you were to have such a ban in parliamentary rules, party rules, wherever it happens to be, chances are you may be catching quite a lot of people. Word is that a lot of MPs do this.
Yeah, but if they do, then they're wrong to do so, in my view. And I think it's not. I don't think there should be necessarily retrospective punishment of people who just happen to bet on the size of the majority or when what their majority might be. I don't think anybody should bet on anything where they have the potential to influence the outcome, which you clearly do if you're the candidate. This guy, the Labour guy, who's bet on his own defeat. I just think that's wrong. I think it's bad for the morale of your own campaign as much as anything else. But also, I think that we just have to. One of the reasons why this government, I think, is hopefully going to get absolutely smashed in the election is because we've seen a pattern of behaviour where public service comes second to the party interest or to personal interest, and that is what has to be restored. And I just don't think it's that complicated.
Yeah, I mean, look, Keir Starmer has come down against the idea of a change in the rules of the law of the kind that you're describing. So you're kind of at odds with him. I'm not saying there's a crime in disagreeing with Keir Starmer, but you are.
Well, that's fine. I just have a very, very, I'm not a fan of gambling, full stop. I actually didn't like the liberalisation of the gambling laws that we brought in when I was working for the government. But I think on this, one of the big problems in politics now is the reputation of politicians with the public. I actually think Keir Starmer is doing a lot of good things that will address that, but I think he needs to go even further. I actually think the Nolan principles should be applied to every MP: honesty, openness, objectivity, selflessness, integrity, accountability and leadership. I think that one of the reasons I've written these books for children is because I think a lot of children now have the view, given through the media, given through their parents, that basically all politicians are liars, all politicians are the same. We've got to challenge that narrative. We've got to get a young generation interested in politics, engaged in politics. And if we don't, democracy is in peril. So the politicians have to take the lead in that by the standards they set.
Yeah, let me ask you this. I mean, I hear what you say, and you sound as if you feel quite strongly about it. Is there any part of your view that thinks that this gambling story, which has run for days now, is being overhyped? I know the public are responding to the pollsters and saying they disapprove of what they're hearing. I know Tory members in large numbers are genuinely distressed about what they're hearing. Is this the biggest issue facing the country at the moment in the middle of an election campaign?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think, but that's another problem. When you have the loss of moral compass within a government or within a party, this is what happens. We should be talking about the economy. We should be talking about the health service. We should be talking about the big issues that matter to people's lives. But the fact that we are talking about this is because Rishi Sunak, when it broke, decided to sort of do the old wait for Sue Gray trick, hide behind process. If you're a political leader, you have to take difficult decisions, and the obvious thing to do straight away was to say, you're out. However, I'd make a bigger point. If he had set the kind of standards that should be set within any political organisation, it shouldn't have happened in the first place. I and the people that work for Tony Blair, I don't think we would have any more thought of putting a bet on the date of the general election than, frankly, fly to the moon. We'd have been focused on the job we were doing, and we would not have thought it was about our personal gain.
Right. Look, you say you're worried, deeply worried about the public becoming just so deeply cynical about politics. I absolutely share that view. So if Labour gets in, and if and when taxes go up after all that's been said, won't that add to this ratchet effect of cynicism? Maybe that's worth avoiding, especially if the party is on the point of a supermajority and maybe, who knows, a generation in office.
Well, the first thing to say about this supermajority nonsense is there's no such thing in our constitution.
Yeah, that was the thrust of my question, though.
Yeah, I know, but I just think that it's part of a strategy by the Conservatives. They started this thing about the supermajority. They're basically trying to say, look, we don't deserve to win on our record and our merit, but for heaven's sake, don't give Labour a massive majority. People should vote according to what they think is the right direction for the country. Where I agree with your point, I think that, I have some sympathy with Paul Johnson's Institute for Fiscal Studies, who's saying that, all of the main parties, particularly Reform and some of the smaller parties, are making promises which they know that cannot be kept. Now, I think what the Labour Party are you can't accuse the Labour Party of doing. They are saying that they have to grow the economy. They're giving plans as to how they think that can happen. But you're right, if the Labour Party go against the words that they're putting out now about their plans for the future, then that will cause them difficulty in the future. And that is right, that is exactly what should happen. Interestingly, in Australia recently, you had an election where the Prime Minister got elected, a new government, a Labour government, who said that he was going to stick to Scott Morrison's tax plans, the outgoing Australian Prime Minister, and then in office changed it. And because the changes that he made were popular, politically it doesn't seem to have damaged him. But I think that in the end, what I hope Labour will do is deliver on the promises that they've made, because that in the end is the way to rebuild trust in politics.
Right. When the Conservatives claimed, didn't they, and they claimed the civil service had put these figures together, that Labour would cost households £2,000 a head. Now, that bit about civil servants endorsing that was just false, knowingly false. I called it a lie. Labour, though, say that £4,000 would be put on mortgages as a result of Conservative plans. That is also bogus, Alastair.
Well, if I don't know much about the second one because I haven't followed that part of the debate, but I agree with you in general. And we just interviewed for the podcast I do with Rory Stewart. We've just interviewed Gus O'Donnell, the former cabinet secretary, and he makes the point that all parties have done this, where what you do, you go to the Treasury and you say, look, if I wanted to do policy A, policy B, policy C, policy D, how much would that cost? Okay. What you don't necessarily say to the Treasury Civil Service is, by the way, this is something we're going to accuse the opposition of. And Gus says he hopes that in future we can just put a stop to that kind of stuff. But I've just been talking today to a former colleague of yours at the BBC, Chris Morris, who now works for Full Fact. He tells me that the word that has most appeared in all of the broadcast debate that has happened around this general election, which has been many, many, many millions, possibly billions of words, is tax. So by lying, as you say, in the first TV debate and then doubling down, Rishi Sunak's probably sitting there and his advisors sitting there thinking, hey, result, we've actually got people talking about tax more than any other issue. I hope they pay a price for that, because I actually think it is wrong when you know something is untrue to keep saying it. And I thought we might have learnt the lesson from the Brexit referendum, where they won by lying. It's gone wrong because the lies have turned out to be so, and yet they seem to be doubling down on the tactic. The public have to punish this. That's the only way it's going to change.
Okay, well, I made the point that sword cuts both ways, but I'll leave it there. Alastair Campbell, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.